going on YouTube? Mike with iHeart Knives. Today we're going to talk about different kinds of sharpening stones. If you could, I'll get it out of the way now. If you could go ahead and give me a subscribe, like, comment, I'd really appreciate it. And let's get right into it. So we're going to talk about synthetic sharpening stones. That's all we're going to talk about for now. We're not going to talk about naturals right now. I want to break it down just for synthetics, and then I can go to naturals at a separate time. We have Sharpening Pro, we have Sharpening Glass, Naniwa, we have silicon carbide, we have lapping film, and then we have diamonds. And we have, these are coated diamond abrasives. This is a coated diamond abrasive, so is this, and then this is a resin bonded diamond. Let's take it a step at a time, and let's go with ceramics first. And so here we have Sharpening Pro Hano Kuramaku ceramic stone. This is a 220. I have, the whole set of them. I just figured I'd do one so we don't make it confusing. I have stones all over the place. This is a Sharpening Glass 500, and it is a little. These stones are a little bit harder than the Sharpening Pro, but they pretty much cut about the same. They cut a little bit differently. The feedback is different, but the types of steel that you can cut with them are the same pretty much. You are limited. You're not going to be able to cut like Maximat with the Sharpening Pros and Sharpening Glass, but you can get away with, I'd say, 90% of the knife steel. You can sharpen on these stones. Same with the Naniwa. They're Naniwa and the Sharpening Pro and Sharpening Glass are basically on the same playing field. So basically they take, a type of grit, they put it in a formula, they bake the stone, and then you're given your stone, you use water, which is what helps the resin break away, especially like with Naniwa. I believe they're magnesia bonded stones, and water, and then the pressure from sharpening releases the grit, and you're always like shedding new grit. Same with the Sharpening Pro and the Sharpening Glass. Sharpening Glass don't shed grit as much as the Sharpening Pro. It's a harder stone, but that's what allows you to keep cutting, and when you keep getting fresh abrasive, it helps cut it faster. The Sharpening Pro stones, basically, they have a ceramic particle, and those particles are delivered in a certain size. So there's like individual particles to this stone, and then they use a binder, and the binder and the particles are brought together. They cook the stone, and you're left with the stone that you can, like, these are splashing those stones. You don't need to soak them, and water is what you use on them. You don't use oil. You just use regular tap water, and you splash water on, start sharpening, and you'll see that the grit starts coming up, and they're fairly hard wearing. They don't wear out really quickly. They're fast cutting, and they work really effectively. This is like the budget line for Sharpening, more than the Sharpening Glass. Sharpening Glass are a little bit more money. It's really not much of a difference. Naniwa are pretty much the most expensive water stones on the market for sharpening. So let's go into Sharpening Glass first. Sharpening Glass, there's two kinds. There's HR and HC. And HR Sharpening Glass stones are meant for more wear resistant, higher carbide level steels. So like your modern super steels. And HC, it stands for high carbon. It's for like your high carbon simple steels, like white number 1, white number 2, blue number 1, and blue number 2, Aogami Super, 1095 01 tool steel D2. What else? 1084, like your more traditional simple carbon steels. That's what the HC are really meant for like straight razors and stuff like that. And this is a white particle. They're all Sharpening glass are a white ceramic particle. They're much harder than the Sharpening Pro. I'd say probably about 30 to 40% harder. So they don't give you as much particle, on the stone. You only get about 5 millimeters. They do make double wide, so you could get like 10 millimeter thick. I think they are. I think it's double. It's either like 7 millimeter or 10 millimeter. I can't remember. But either way, you get much more particle on the stone. These are, I believe, 15 millimeters tall. And then Naniwa Chaucera. Naniwa is the company. Chaucera is the type of stone. So like this is the Sharpening Pro. That's the level stone. Then there's Sharpening glass. And this is their top line stone. The best one that they offer. Naniwa, Chaucera are the best that Naniwa make, also called professional. They go under two different lines, but they're basically the same. Chaucera is the old name. They used to come on like a plastic base. Stone would be on top of a plastic base. And then they came out with professional. And I believe Chaucera are still offered in Japan. You can buy them in Japan. You can still get them here in America. They're just much more expensive. And then professional is just the empty stone like this, where you don't get a plastic base that is attached to it. Chaucera stones are in a magnesia bonder. They're a good compromise between a hard stone, but also with some feedback. They're pretty much like the top line stone, along with Sharpening glass. I'd put them in the same category. I would probably say that people who use the Chaucera stones like them a little bit better than they do the Sharpening glass. That's just what I've seen. Like a lot of the people that use Chaucera only use Chaucera, the Naniwa Chaucera stones. So these are all splash and go stones. None of them require soaking. You don't want to soak them either because they can hurt the stone, especially the Chaucera. These literally melt in water. If you were to just soak Chaucera stones, you would eventually destroy them. Magnesia bonded stones, the binding is triggered by water, and that's what releases the particle. And eventually you'll start getting cracks, and the stone will end up getting destroyed eventually, and it won't work correctly if you were to soak them. So you just splash water on them and go. Silicon carbide stones, the particle that actually cuts the steel is silicon carbide. It's a very hard abrasive. It's basically like the third hardest abrasive for what we're talking about. You have diamond is the hardest. CBN, which is cubic boron nitride, is just under that. And then silicon carbide is just under that. And silicon carbide will cut Maximat. I've used silicon carbide to sharpen my Maximat. These are just little half-inch gritomatic stones. They work well. These you can soak. I don't soak them for long periods of time. I do take my stones out to let them dry and to breathe. Some people perma-soak stones. That's for another video. We won't talk about that today. But I like ceramics, but silicon carbide are nice to have, especially if you don't want to go totally diamond. Like the scratch pattern is really nice on these stones. They don't cut incredibly deep. Like diamonds cut the deepest. They cut the fastest. These are a little bit of a compromise. These are all basically in the same realm of type of stone. This is not a stone. This is a KME glass lapping plate with 1 micron film, and this film is the abrasive. It's basically like sandpaper, but at really fine levels, and different companies make different films. This happens to be Gritomatic, but there's plenty of companies that make them. KME makes their own. I believe Edge Pro they have their own made as well. I'm not sure if they might even come out of the same factories. It's probably like all from 3M or something like that, but who knows. So these work very well. The polish that they leave is incredible, and they're really effective at removing burrs. The 3 micron and the 1 micron, I think, are the most useful polishing tapes, but that's just my opinion. I think those are like the 2 levels that are the most useful. Bigger than 3 micron, I can get with sharpening, and then under 3 micron, I get with stropping. So I think 3 and 1 is like a good in between. You can go to like 5, but I won't talk about like my progression. I'm just talking about the different types for today. And then last we have diamond. So I don't have CBN stones. They're really expensive, and I don't. So how can I put this? I would love CBN stones, but for the money, I can get just about the same effect from diamond. I know CBN cut differently. I use CBN for my strops, but for the cost of CBN, for what I use these stones for, I can get the same effect out of like an Edge Pro Matrix Diamond stone, which actually that's another stone I should go grab quick. Let's talk about diamond stones. So we've got a few different types. We've got, actually let's start here. So we've got, these are DMT 6x2 inch. These are coated abrasives. This is a 220, this is a 1200. I just grabbed, these two for, just to show you. I actually have a DMT extra fine, which I think is like 6,000 grit, which basically looks like this. You just don't see the diamond particles like you do on this. This is an Atoma. This happens to be a 400, and then on the other side is a 140. You can probably see down there. It's shiny. So these are coated abrasives. There is a piece of metal on this base. This is just like a plastic extruded base. There's a real thin piece of metal you can see here, and the diamonds are basically glued onto the piece of metal. I think it's electroplating that they use to glue it on. But basically what happens is you sharpen your knife on here, and eventually the diamonds fall off, and your plate is useless after a while. It takes a while for that to happen if you use it correctly. My first couple, I was putting too much pressure, and I was wearing them out faster than I needed to. Now, they've come a long way with diamonds. They have resin bonded diamond stones. These weren't out when I first got diamond stones. These are fairly new. I think actually Naniwa diamond stones, I'm not sure how long they've been out. They might have been out a little longer, but these companies didn't have it at the time. This is an Edge Pro Matrix diamond stone, and this is a Venive resin bonded diamond stone. And I have the full set of 3 of these. I like their stones. But this is a coated abrasive. So this is just like the DMT. It has a piece of metal that's attached to the base, and it's electroplated to this. I actually find that the Chef Knives To Go brand diamond stones, the electroplated ones, they actually last longer than most any other brand. I got one of their lapping plates. It was a 140 grit. I beat the hell out of that thing, lapping Japanese naturals. If you want something to do to keep you busy, go buy a hard Japanese natural and a lapping plate and go play in the sink for 3 hours and see how you feel after that. I mean, I beat the piss out of the Chef Knives to Go 140 lapping plate, and the thing still has like half the diamond particles. I probably lapped 20 Japanese natural stones on it. It was crazy. I went through a DMT extra course 140 and about half of an Atoma 140 in the same amount of time that I went through half of my Chef Knives to Go 140. So that should tell you something. And Atomas are awesome. I still use my Atomas. The only reason I don't use the Chef Knives to Go 140 is because it's really heavy and it doesn't release the particles to keep like a fluid lapping going. So like the Atoma, what's great about it is there's little dimples that the diamonds are encrusted in, so it gives it something to hold. It actually kind of looks like what this looks like, but the DMT has plastic underneath this metal, whereas the Atoma just has like dimples in the metal itself where the diamonds are down in. So the electroplating on the Atoma is just more effective and they last longer. But back to resin bonded diamond. How they work is just like these ceramic stones. You have a binding. So let's just say that that's glue. And then you sprinkle your diamonds on top. And then it gets baked, or however, whatever their cooking process is. What you're left with is, and you should be able to see the diamonds kind of shine. Yeah, there, I think you just saw it. They kind of sparkle. Sorry, I'm looking at the monitor to see what you guys are seeing. So right there, you should be able to see sparkling, and that's the diamond inside this bonded matrix. And you can see from the side, you can see here this gray, this gray matrix on the side is where it's bonded into. And what you do is you take silicon carbide, loose particle grit, like lapping particle, and you put it on a glass plate and you run it back and forth with water, and then what happens is the binder in here gets chewed out, but the diamond will stay, and you have fresh diamond that's poking up through the matrix, and that's what cuts your steel. So you get sort of in between this coated abrasive and like what you'd see in a water stone. So you get a little bit more feedback than what you get with this. Like nice feedback. These things give feedback. It's like dead hard. So you're gonna feel the steel getting cut, but you don't get as much of the steel talking back to you to tell you, where you are in the sharpening process, if that makes sense. To those of you who sharpen, it'll make probably more sense than those of you who don't freehand sharpen. The Edge Pro Matrix Diamond Stone is the same. It has the matrix that holds the diamond particle, like we just talked about with this Venive, but this is more of like a rubbery feel. Like it feels softer. The matrix feels softer than the Venive. It doesn't. It lasts just as long as the Venive. It's just as hard, but it feels like this gummy rubberiness to it that's kind of hard to explain. It almost feels like when you sharpen on like a Sharpening Pro 5000, like that gumminess, kind of. That's kind of how this feels, but it's obviously diamond. And this thing will cut any steel. So just like this Veneve will, and just like these coated diamond abrasives will. So they'll all cut any steel. Diamond is the hardest sharpening medium. So that's pretty much going to do it for this video. This is just like a quick intro into the types of abrasives for like synthetic sharpening, and then natural, we can do that totally separately. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. If you guys liked it, if you learned something, please go ahead and like, comment, share, subscribe. Thanks to all my subscribers, and we'll see you guys on the next one. This is Mike with I Heart Knives. Have yourselves a good day.